Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What is up, Lock Shoppers? Welcome to the show for a big Thursday CFL kickoff edition of The Lock Shop. Andrew Paterson, along with JBM, Jake Bolin Moss from Coolbet today. Dusty will be back next week, but Dusty's going to be busy this weekend. Calling games back on TSN. Tonight, though, he won't be in the booth, but I'll be in the stands. We'll be packing Princess Auto Stadium tonight for game one of the regular season between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Montreal Alouettes. We've got a WST parlay ready to go for Bomber fans tonight. And we've got some picks coming as well. Welcome to everybody in chat. Great to see you all. And shout out to everybody listening on the Edmonton Sports Talk live stream. Jake, it's great to have you on the program. And I guess you can thank me right now for mushing your team into a much-needed victory yesterday. Man, your Jays needed that. And, of course, the minute I say this is insane that the Orioles are plus money against the Blue Jays, they find a way to squeak it out on a walk-off by your guy, IKF.
Yeah, big win for the team. Got to follow it up again today with an afternoon game, which just is getting underway right now. So if they can at least split the series with Baltimore, no skin loss there. But the way this series started, I wasn't surprised with your pick, to say the least. And you're rarely the mush, you're the guy who walks in and said, this is the pick, and it tends to be a winner more often than not. But a good time for a mush, I'd say, Huss, in the situation last night.
And I just remember when I said, I sort of feel bad making this pick because I always like to pick, the home team or the teams that we're going for. And just yesterday, I was so down and out on the Jays after those first two games against Baltimore, and then saw that number. Okay, I can't not help to do it. But I said, maybe, just maybe, this will be the catalyst to turn it around. And hey, they did. I guess this Orioles-Jays game already underway this afternoon. Just basically first pitch going away early 1 p.m. start out in TO on getaway day for the Orioles.
Yeah, usually Wednesday's been the getaway day, but I guess because obviously it's a 4-game series, the getaway day gets moved to Thursday. So a little afternoon baseball for the folks, or even some morning baseball if you're out in Edmonton or BC. So yeah, you can't be upset about that. We'll see what they do. They got your guy Kikuchi on the mound today, so that's something to be excited about. I know you'll have WST followed after Lock Shop, but I'm sure you'll be peeking in to see what's going on with the Blue Jays.
Hey, speaking of the Jays, I have to ask you, are they any closer to figuring out what's going to happen with that fifth starter position? I mean, it's either guys that are injured or guys that are getting lit up like a Christmas tree every time they get out there. I mean, they're really leaning on their 4 guys right now, aren't they?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about what they're going to do about it, but yeah, they're struggling now without having proper, starting pitching depth. This is kind of what it looks like. So, Manoah goes down. I think he's toast for the season. And Bowden Francis started the season up with a big club, but he hasn't been too great. I think he, for now, will be that replacement kind of. I think they started Trevor Richards the other night. He actually pitched pretty well. He had pitched 2 innings, had about 40 pitches, and then Bowden went in and things got a little rough after that. But, they're just going to be hanging on by a thread right now without starting pitching depth, and it's not easy to go out and just get starting pitching without giving something up. So it'll be interesting to see. It definitely feels like one of those things, you talk about all these teams in Toronto, you go back to the Leafs and it's always like, well, the defensive depth isn't great, or the defensive, the top defensive core isn't great. The goaltending isn't great. Seems like starting pitching over the last few years for the Blue Jays has been a bit of a question mark. If you have 4 or 5 good pitchers, but the minute one goes down, you have nothing to replace it. I think about teams like Houston or the Dodgers, for instance. They always seem to have something coming up from the minors where that can slot in and give them good innings. Right now, the Blue Jays don't have that, and it's a bit of a concern for sure.
Yeah, either that or like 3 guys in the pen that would be 3rd or 4th starters on a number of other teams.
Right.
And, of course, Mitch White got whacked earlier this season this would have been a massive opportunity for a guy like that, but didn't make it that long. Dom Skeeter in chat saying, don't mind betting on Baltimore if the Jays actually win.
Yeah,
it was a win-win situation. That was the nice thing about it yesterday. Even in an L for me personally, nice to see the team get a very, very important win. And I'll tell you what, as ugly as those first two games were of this series, they find a way behind Kikuchi to get a win tonight and saw this one off at 2-2. I think they can sort of move forward feeling like they got out of a jam. And listen, a 4-game sweep would have been an absolute disaster. 1-3, still not going to cut it. But if you win the final 2 of a 4-game series to go 2-2, I think that sort of bodes well for them getting back out onto the road and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? It's like you're taking a mini win streak out of a divisional rival who's, one of the better teams in baseball. It doesn't matter how many you lose by in the first 2 games. If you win the next 2, it's still a series split, You're not really worried about the run differential right now. You're worried about just picking up wins. And if you can walk away 500 in this series, after the way it started, I think you can consider that a win, especially going into, the next couple series here.
Well, and this next series is, of course, in Oakland against the A's. They'll have Bassett and Gosman on the hill for the first 2 starts, still undecided, as we mentioned, for that 5th start on Sunday. And then out to Milwaukee after Oakland on the way back home before a 6-game homestand with the Cleveland Guardians, who have been really good so far this season at the top of the AL Central, and the Boston Red Sox. Jake, we'll kind of finish off with getting into the CFL stuff. And by the way, WSTers, lock shoppers in and around the Winnipeg area, stay tuned. Got a great contest we're starting today. Pat's actually going to jump on with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk to talk about it a little bit more, but I'll fill you in on those details in the lock shop in a minute. We finally, outside of the CFL, which is going to be our constant now for the weekend, and thank God it is back, we finally get some actual action in the finals. We still got to wait till Saturday for the Oilers to begin their series with the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final. But Jake, tonight, tip-off after 7 or 8 days off, the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. Where are you at on this series?
Yeah, it's tough. With how big of a favorite Boston is, it's hard to really put anything on them, I'd say. I think a lot of people are saying to themselves, you're giving me Kyrie and Luka, 2 of the better players. You could argue the 2 best players in the series, depending on how it shapes up. At plus 185 to win the series, I don't hate that at all. What's their plus 1.5? Plus 1.5, minus 128. They could win the series, they could lose in 7. There's another option right there where you're getting decent value. They're going to obviously have to win a game on the road. But we saw what they did to Minnesota after Minnesota took down the Nuggets. They handled Minnesota pretty well. And the way Luka and Kyrie are playing right now, it's hard to bet against them. The addition of Porzingis to Boston is going to be an interesting one. How does he slot back in? What is that going to look like? Obviously, they've been one of the best teams in basketball all season. But I just looked, and this is the conversation people have been having. Over the last 20 games of the season, Dallas was playing at a 16-4 clip. They won 16 of their last 20, and they've rolled some decent teams here. They beat the Clippers in round 1. The number 1 seed OKC Thunder in round 2, and then took care of business against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who everyone was kind of behind with the Anthony Edwards stuff. The next Jordan, people were saying that was an interesting topic of conversation. But they've quieted all that, and now they're here in the finals. 6.5 point underdogs tonight. If they play a close one or even win tonight, we're going to expect a different number in game 2, I'd say, because I think. Right now, the bookmakers have been all over Boston. They love Boston, and it's reflected in the way the odds have been from the start of the playoffs. And it's shown. I mean, they've made it this way without really any contention. I think Dallas can go out tonight, steal one, because you think about the competition Boston's played, it hasn't been nearly as good as what Dallas has seen.
Close.
So I just don't know if Boston is battle-tested yet, and they might take a game for them to be like, oh, crap, we're in the finals right now, and this is a different beast than the Indiana Pacers or the Cleveland Cavaliers, for that matter.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't even mind taking a swing on the Mavs tonight, to your point.
Yeah.
Coming right out of the gate with some rest at plus 205. I mean, the concern about the Mavs going into that series was just, what did Luka have left from the previous series? Well, he had a lot, and he seemed to get better throughout the series, and with that little bit of extra rest, he's looking to stamp his name as one of the true greats in the game right now, and the ring goes a long way, certainly in NBA, in the hot take world that we live in right now. The ring is the thing, and I love the fact, like, I've come around on Kyrie a lot this year. I thought he was a bit of a buffoon for a while with some of the way that he was acting. He's bought in, been a great teammate, a real leader right now, and I don't think that's something we really thought of in a positive way, I guess, maybe in the past. Certainly at a stop in Boston. And, I mean, what a juicy matchup considering his history with the Celtics. The series price hasn't really changed all week. Minus 233 for Boston, plus 185 for the Mavericks. The total games in the series, a sweep is plus 590. Under 5.5 games is plus 142. So it's certainly, the book believes that this is going to go likely 6 games. It looks like is sort of that number, because over 5.5 is minus 192. But this series to go 7 plus 210. And Pat and I talked about this yesterday. He says he thinks he's looking at this one going the distance. So he did like the plus 210. But we've got a whole bunch of other things that have actually just dropped in advance of the series tonight. Player 3-pointers, most 3-pointers in the series. This seems like a no-brainer Luka Doncic bet. No surprise that he is at plus 110. You've got Derek White at plus 375, Kyrie Irving at plus 550, and Jason Tatum at plus 600. Even if the Mavericks lose this series, hard not to think that Luka Doncic leads the way in 3-point shooting with the way that he's played so far this year. I mean, it's still a plus number. If you had asked me before, Jake, and this is why I think I might actually jump on this, what do you think the odds of Luka hitting the most 3-pointers in this series? I would have thought it would be maybe like minus 130, minus 140. I mean, listen, it speaks to the talent around it, but we're not talking about one game. We're talking about a series here. Hard for me to imagine Luka doesn't take this. So getting plus money on Luka to have most threes in it, I think, is a one that I'm going to have to jump in on.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. There's also, most rebounds, most points, most assists. And we also get the finals MVP in that same kind of column there. Jason Tatum right now, minus 133 to be the finals MVP. Luka next in line at plus 190. And then a really big fall off from there. I think you guys talked a bit about this yesterday, but the Kyrie number is interesting to me. 10-1 plus 1,000 on Kyrie to win the finals MVP. He's been there before. He's made big shots in the finals. Not saying that Luka's not going to be the star, and Kyrie would have to have a few big games to really take that from Luka if Dallas were to go on and win. But something that interests me for sure, I think Kyrie would be as far down the list as I would go. It would be, one of the top 4 guys, because just the way these NBA voters are, it tends to be, the top player. We've seen in the past, an Andre Iguodala winning a finals MVP over a Steph Curry, with Steph not having the best series. I think Durant won it over Curry another year, and then Curry ended up getting his a little later down the line. But it's one of those things where Jason Tatum, sometimes he is the best player on the court, and sometimes, there's quarters at a time where he just kind of goes away, and it's almost like you don't even realize he's out there sometimes. So it's an interesting one. If he's lighting it up and Boston goes on to win this like they're expected to, I can understand it's going to be Jason Tatum. But, looking at a Jaylen Brown at plus 650 or a Kyrie Irving at plus 1,000 is something I definitely wouldn't shy away from the way this series, depending on how you expect the series to go.
Yeah, you want a real long shot for that? Kristaps Porzingis is back in the lineup tonight. He's at 28-1. Now, I think it's highly unlikely that he would get it over one of those other guys on his team, but he's going to get a lot of attention. If he comes back and has a massive game right out of the gate, maybe some steam picks up on that. That being said, listen, I'm taking the Mavs. I'm taking Luka most 3-pointers. I'm taking Luka MVP. I'm just putting my eggs in that basket. And hey, if the Mavs win, but Kyrie's the MVP, I'll be able to live with it. I have too much ill will against the Celtics in general. And I mean, I don't want to say this goes back to the Patriots, but it kind of does go back to that era where Boston was literally winning everything. And although the funny thing about it is that the Dallas won the World Series. The Stars were the team that was in the Final Four of the hockey. And of course, they're in the finals here. So it's all up there at Coolbet right now. You can check out everything for the series as well as tonight's game. As far as just tonight's game goes, the Celtics are a 6.5-point favorite at home in this game. And once again, I'm leaning Mavs. Certainly, I think with the value, if you want to take the swing at the money line plus 205, go for it. Otherwise, you can be a bit more conservative at plus 6.5. We've had some great runs lately in golf. I do want to get to a quick little update for the lock shoppers and how we're looking at the Memorial. My guy Hollywood Hoagie was 2 under through 3, which was a hell of a way to start. It's Eric Cole who's got the lead right now, 4 under par. Xander Schauffele, fresh off his major championship, at 3 under. And there's a guy that you saw last week. Nice to see a Canadian flag right up there. Adam Hadwin with a nice start. He's 3 under through 8, Jake. No one else on the course, other than the 2 I just mentioned, are better than 2 under on the day.
Yeah, it looks like he was actually 4 under through 7. He must have just dropped one by looking at the Google update.
He did.
So he might have just dropped one, which means he's off to a really good start. 4 under through 7 is a great place to be. So we'll see what happens with Hadwin. And our guy Svenny's out there. I think he's even through 16 now. So, not far off. But if he can go home with a birdie or 2 down the stretch, that'd be lovely. And Pendy's teeing off this afternoon. I think just at the top of the hour here, coming up at around 2:00.
Well, yeah, we need Pendy for part of our. We had the 4 first round matchups today. We'll check in on that later on today on WST. Patty and I, we love Victor Hovland. He's the defending champ. He is at 2 under right now. And guess who? Scotty Scheffler, 2 under. You're going to need to go the full 72 holes if you want to beat him. He was a plus 350 favorite. My guy, Tony Finau, 2 under through 7. Although Tony's had some great first and second rounds. It's the weekend that's been a bit of an issue. And, hey, we were on Benny On and Tom Kim, both in our parlay. Both of them are 1 under right now. Ben's done. Tom Kim's playing 18. And then, yes, as you mentioned, Svenny.
Just birdie. Just birdie. As I just manifested, Huss. That's all you need to do.
1 under par right now. And, just coming off a birdie at 17, looking to get in with a nice little -1 behind his name. And then, of course, there's Tom Hoagie as well. Couple other names that we're seeing that are still below par. Ludwig Oberg. Ludwig was maybe the auto bet from Pat for a long time. He hurt his knee, missed a little bit of time. We were a little worried about where he's at right now. He's looking pretty good. And speaking of Pat's guys, Sahith Theegala might have been his number 1 guy up until last week when he just absolutely disintegrated. But he's had a nice start. He's 1 under through 6, as is Corey Connors, who is 1 under par. I see Max Homa and Jason Day have just got out to nice starts. Some other interested players, Sepp Straka even. Again, a lot of these guys are just really getting into their rounds. But there is some pluses out there. Shane Lowry, 2 over par. Nick Taylor, 2 over par. Matt Fitzpatrick in at 1 over par. David Thompson at 1 over par. Just looking to going down to see if there's any bigger numbers. Wow, Wyndham Clark 3 over. Will Zalatoris 3 over. Sungjae Im 4 over. And Mac Hughes, Mac 6 over right now. I think there might be a little bit of an emotional letdown for Mac this week, Jake, after being the center of attention for so much of last week, playing on home soil. And I'll tell you what, if he has to have a little lull, do it right now, because next week is a major and he'll definitely want to be his best.
Yeah, Mac Hughes, that's an interesting one, especially in this kind of race here for the Olympics. They got a couple more weeks till they decide who's going to be in that Olympic field for Canada. Right now, I believe it's Corey Connors and Nick Taylor based on official world golf rankings. But Mac Hughes was kind of moving his way up the board, and a +6 start is not going to be a good way to continue that momentum. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all kind of pans out. Like I said, there's still some groups to go off. McIlroy Thomas, Harman Spieth, Matsuyama Morikawa, Riley Pendrith, and then Snedeker and the amateur Koiven going off in the last group there. So, yeah, still plenty of golf to be played, but, the leaderboard's starting to take shape. We got a Canadian up top, and like I said, Svenny picking up a nice little birdie there on 17, see if he can close out in red figures.
All right. Well, hey, you know what I should do? We should fire up the keyword today, because as we're talking golf, of course, there is a $100,000 hole-in-one promo that the EST boys are cranking out. And today's the 6th? Oh, speaking of Patty's guys, here's your keyword for the $100,000 hole-in-one presented by Golf Town. Today's number or keyword is Theegala, as in Sahith Theegala, Theegala. He's been a favorite of ours, blew up big time on the weekend at the Canadian Open, but he's had a nice start. So you need to text ESTers. Text in Theegala to 780-218-9999 for a chance to qualify for the $100,000 hole-in-one presented by Golf Town. I don't know whether it's Maddie or Zach who will take over when we're done, give you a little more details on that, as well as a qualifier. But Jake, tonight here in the Peg, we kick off CFL season. And, as I'll talk with Pat today, coming up today on the Lock Shop, or on Winnipeg Sports Talk, the 20% booster, the 3-down thrill, is there for CFL bettors once a week, every week of the Canadian Football League season. This is awesome. And I should remind people, because I know we've spent a lot of time talking about futures, including that juicy 6.5 win total for the Elks, which I love on the over. You Edmontoners have bet that thing to -133. However, if you want to use your 20% win booster, it basically takes all of that line movement out of it and gets you back to about what would normally be a regular bet at about -108, -110. But we're ready for kickoff here in the Peg.
Yeah, it's exciting times. I feel like this is as ready to start a season for the CFL as we've ever been. We've got 6 exclusives up right now for today and the weekend. We've also got the WST exclusive up. Nice juicy number, which we can get to here in a sec. And then the win booster, like you just talked about, 20% win booster every single week of the CFL season. So if you're betting on the CFL, make sure you're at least clicking that win booster on one of your bets. You're going to get one every week. Make sure it's your favorite bet. You can get some juicy ones. For instance, like you're betting an underdog. Say you're betting the Rough Riders on Saturday. You get a nice +105 number on the money line and a little 20% boost add on top of that. So I know a lot of people here probably aren't betting the Rough Riders, but just an example, for the people that are going to bet the CFL. So yeah, make sure you get in on the win booster. You don't have to do any opt-in or anything. It's automatically there. Click on your favorite CFL bet. You'll see it down in the bet slip area. It says 20% multiplier. You just apply that and you're good to go for every single week.
Yeah, I mean, we'll normally be talking in the Lock Shop about our individual picks. We're all going to be making our picks every week. And And, really our number one, our best play will probably be the one that gets the 20%er. So that'll be something Dusty and I'll have fun with throughout the year when we get into it. But as I remind you, if you want to use it on a future this week while they're still up before the season kicks off tonight and the rest of the weekend, you can certainly do that. Let's get to these Coolbet exclusives because we've got a couple for tonight, but also others that include tonight's game, but other games this week. And we've got some really, really nice numbers. Chris Streveler's return is, listen, people are so excited to see what he'll do back with the Bombers this year. And it is important to note, when Streveler was last with the Bombers in 2019, the rules of the CFL stated you could only have one quarterback on the field at a time. And he's such a hybrid player. I mean, with the way that he runs the football, it was sort of unfortunate. We always thought, what would this Bomber offense look like and what would be available to Buck Pierce, the OC, if Streveler was able to be on the field at the same time as Zach Collaros? Well, guess what? That is the case now in the Canadian Football League. And I think we're going to see some very unique packages. And Mike O'Shea and Buck Pierce are going to get Streveler involved in the football game, even if Zach Collaros is doing the majority of the throwing of the football. There's no one that runs short yardage like Strev. And he's minus 250 to score a touchdown today, just south of Brady Oliveira for tonight's game. But 2 touchdowns. And if you think back to the Bombers, it was hilarious, if you're playing DraftKings DFS, that sort of thing. It was so frustrating taking Brady Oliveira because the Bombers notoriously threw Dakota Prukop in, who would just vulture touchdowns every year. The year before, the backup had like 12 or 13, led the team in touchdowns. So with Streveler in the mix, I expect him to get in. I have one Streveler touchdown in on the WST parlay, but you can get plus 250 for Streveler to get in the end zone twice in week 1. I really like this chalk one. I'll be honest, I'm very nervous, and we'll get to the picks in a minute. I can't believe how big the number is for the Bombers, how big of a favorite they are against Montreal. And we'll touch on that in a minute. I do like them to win the football game. I'm less confident about the cover, but the straight chalk it up. Listen, the Hamilton-Calgary game is kind of a pick 'em right now. I think it's minus 112, minus 108 on the money line. But Bombers to win, Elks to win, and Lions to win, all favorites, plus 250 right now. That is a nice little boost. If you're looking at a Zach Collaros prop for tonight, Collaros to hit 269 plus, 2 passing touchdowns, and the Bombers to cover 6.5 is at plus 325. And then we get into the house callers. I've always loved the house callers. Just basically, we're looking at touchdown scores. Dalton Schoen, one of Zach Collaros' favorite targets. AJ Ouellette, now in green with the Riders, and Alexander Hollins to record a touchdown in week 1. Plus 375. Pound the rock. Brady Oliveira, 86 or more rushing yards and a touchdown. And Walter Fletcher, 42 or more rushing yards is plus 450. And the final exclusive for week 1, cashes and cash it. Kenny Lawler, Sean Bain Jr., and Curly Gettins, each 5 or more receptions at plus 485. I got to tell you, for week 1, Jake, an excellent job on the exclusives for people that want to get going right out of the gate.
Yeah, I dialed these in this morning. I was like, what kind of route can we go for here? We're obviously going to have some for the specific games as well, but, obviously we just focus on today's games and the whole week in general. So, there's 3 there that kind of cover the whole week in chalk it up, house callers, and catches and cash it, and then 3 specifically for tonight's game. I was really happy with how Strevel up kind of just, it all flowed perfectly into that 2 touchdown scores. He comes back, what a story that would be to come back and Streveler has a has a monster game to kick off the season and get a little revenge for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers after the Grey Cup last year.
Yeah, they're feeling it. The players, the fans, looking forward to it. And you know what? Montreal, Jason Moss is funny. Like, he's sort of in an ornery and sometimes cantankerous mood at the best of times, and that's just sort of the way he is. I do understand them being a little miffed that they are on the road in week one, not at home as Grey Cup champs, and having to come to Winnipeg on a Thursday night on a short week after they all played Friday night. Not a great spot for the Alouettes, and I think that's sort of playing a little bit into the line. I did take a big swing with the WST parlay, and just before we make all our picks, and I think we've got a pretty good look at a lock shop partner parlay for the weekend that we'll get in. This is what I put together for tonight. I like the over on Zach Collaros passing. Zach, by all accounts, has been absolutely dialed in through training camp. And, you know, the one constant right now of this team is the receiving core with Kenny Lawler and Nick Dembski and Dalton Schoen and Drew Olatarski all back as his top targets. The offensive line lost Jamarcus Hardrick, lost Jeff Gray, a little bit of transition in. So I'm not sure whether that takes a little bit more time for the running game to really get going. At least certainly with Brady Oliveira. And Brady didn't play in the preseason as well, though he has been practicing with the first team all week. But I put this together. Collaros, 269 plus passing yards. Dalton Schoen, 67 plus receiving yards. Nick Dembski, 48 receiving yards or more, and an anytime touchdown. A Chris Streveler anytime touchdown, and the Bombers to win. No spread. Don't need to cover, just win. I'm amazed at this number. Plus 1375. I'm already on it. If you want a fun, extensive game day bet builder parlay, we put it up for Bomber fans up in the Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay. And by the way, for Bomber fans, and I know this won't apply to many of you in the Edmonton area, but we've got an awesome contest that we're starting this week as well with Coolbet on Winnipeg Sports Talk, where you can win a trip to the Labor Day Classic on the Hus bus with me. I'm involved in a tour that is filling up quickly. It's called the 1930 Crew. You can look up on all the socials if you're looking to kind of get in. But you can win your way to Regina for the most fun weekend of the year with Winnipeg Sports Talk and Coolbet. If you are in the Winnipeg area and want to go to the Labor Day game with us and bet on any CFL games this year, when you bet $10 or more on a CFL bet, screen cap your bet slip and send it over along with your info to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. We're going to pick one qualifier every week, and that qualifier will get a marble, and we will be doing this via marble race second week of August, and giving away a trip to the Labor Day game with myself and the rest of the crew. It's going to be so much fun. If you haven't been to Labor Day before, I mean, it's the highlight of the entire CFL season, especially on the prairies. But it'll include bus to there and back from the Peg, 2 nights hotel, tickets to the Labor Day game, some Coolbet swag, a whole bunch of swag from the tour as well. So as I said, if you're betting CFL and you're in this area, you'd be nuts not to jump on this. Again, just screen cap any of your CFL bets at $10 or more and email them to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. Next week, we will announce our first qualifier, and that's going to run for the first 2 months of the season, right up until early August when we give the trip away. So looking forward to all of that, and shout out to the lock shoppers here in the Peg, and of course, everyone out there in Edmonton. All right, well, let's get to these lines. And Jake, I kind of mentioned that I was surprised. I was surprised originally that the Bombers opened as 6.5 point favorites, just considering how last season ended and the off season for both clubs, people are not scared of the big number. It went to 7. It's now 7.5 tonight for a team that hasn't played a lot. I'll be honest. I am taking the points with the Alouettes. I mean, I do like the Bombers to win this game, but much like the Grey Cup, I think this is going to be a heck of an opening game to the season. I think it's going to be close. I think that the fourth quarter, people are going to be glued to their television sets like they often are in the 3-down game. And at this point, against this opponent, I don't have the stones to lay the 7.5. I'm actually taking the points with the Alouettes in this game tonight.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is a double happiness spot for you, Huss. It's exactly what you're talking about. You can take the Alouettes, getting the hook on 7 is so nice, Like, it's hard to turn that down, especially the first game of the season. We really don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Obviously, we expect the Bombers to be great, but the Alouettes had, an impressive year, especially into the playoffs, where they end up winning the Grey Cup last year. I think this is a perfect spot for a double happiness. You get the 7.5, and the Blue Bombers still take it home, win this game. They win it inside the number, and you get a winning bet and a winning game for your football team. So I think it's a perfect spot for a double happiness. You're not going to get a spot like this. You might actually, with the way the Bombers get the lines on the Bombers this season, but it's a great spot to start the season, I'd say, for a situation where you can get a nice cover, win a bet, and you have your football team win.
Well, as they say, when I put the WST parlay together, I was thinking about a close game where the Bombers are going to need to score some points, and Montreal will do the same. So if we could get, a nice Bombers by 3 and a high-scoring game with a bunch of points, I mean, I think it'd be a great way for the league to start off, although not so much for Dusty. Dusty is taking the Bombers, and he's laying – when we did our picks, the line was 7. I mean, for someone like me that's betting Montreal with the point spread, even better to do it today at plus 7.5.
Right.
But Dusty's in on the other side of -7, which is perfect because we'll leave that game off of a partner parlay because I do think we've got some consensus on the other games this week. Tomorrow night's game, and this is the closest one by far, the one game that's not on the Chalk exclusive that you mentioned earlier. It's the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Calgary Stampeders. The return of Bo Levi Mitchell, albeit a season late, to Calgary. And, these teams didn't play in Calgary last year. It was a huge miss by the CFL, considering everything that Bo did during his incredible time with the Stamps. They got it right this year. Coming out of the gate, a healthy Bo Levi Mitchell returning to the Hamilton Tiger Cats lineup and going to Calgary. I've got questions about Calgary this year. They're towards the bottom of my power poll, and I think most people's as we get into this season. And I'll tell you what, I'm pretty high on Hamilton with the advent of Scott Milanovich coming in and taking over as the head coach. Made some nice additions in the offseason. And more than anything, this pick is on Bo. He is disappointed in the last couple years, but this is a guy that has a lot of pride. Sometimes maybe too much. It's got him in trouble. He's there to win this football game. And, the Ticats are actually 1-point favorites in this game at -105. This is essentially a pick 'em on the money line, -112. But I like Hamilton. Dusty likes Hamilton as well. And listen, he knows what he's in for. I don't know how long Bo's going to be able to stay healthy. I don't know what the prognostication is how they do over the course of the season. But he's going to be up for it. Milanovich will be up for it in his first game. And I think this should be another really fun one to watch tomorrow night. But I'm in on Bo and the Ticats. You want to take them at -1, go for it. Just take them on the money line as well at -112.
Yeah, the reason I didn't include this in the chalk it up because it is so close. It's really Hamilton is the favorite, but it's so slight that it just didn't feel right to include it there, especially for one that we're doing a little bit more chalk. Listen, I don't know what the discourse is online with CFL scheduling. I haven't been down that rabbit hole, but I got to say to kick off the season, this is pretty strong scheduling. Obviously the Argos situation is a little different than it was at the end of last season. But they kind of nailed it here right off the bat. You get your Grey Cup rematch to kick off the season tonight. Will Levi Mitchell return to Calgary, like you mentioned, tomorrow night. Then Saturday, we get two teams that I'd say are, more on the rise in the Rough Riders and the Elks. That should be a great matchup and a nice tight spread there. And then we have the Lions going to Toronto. Obviously, they're bigger favorites. We're going to get to that game. But, that could have been a massive game, too, if Chad Kelly was playing. Obviously, he's not playing. It'll be interesting to see what the Argos look like to start off the season. But, I'd say the scheduling in week one at the very least, impressive. Pat on the back to the CFL schedulers to kick off the season.
Yeah, no, listen, they did do a great job. And, of course, everyone in the Edmonton area looking forward to. By the way, pretty nice looking third unis. Let us know in the chat, Elks fans, what you thought of those. Great rivalry game to kick off the season between two teams that both expect to be much better than they were last year. And that, of course, is the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Edmonton Elks playing in Edmonton, and the Elks are 2-point favorites. I'm high on Edmonton this year. I think that Chris Jones in his third year realizes the pressure on him, and I also think that he's just too good of a coach to have his team be as bad as they've been the last couple of years. Listen, I realize that the bar is low, but the bringing in MBT along with Trey Ford, I think gives them options at the quarterback position that they didn't have before. And as Iwanek, I think, pointed out, he has some concerns about that offensive line. Listen, Trey Ford can run, but you can only run so much in the Canadian Football League as a quarterback. It's great to have that in your pocket when you need it, but you need a guy that can get rid of the football quickly, and that is exactly what McLeod Bethel Thompson can do. So, listen, I think the Riders are going to be better as well. But listen, Corey Mace coming over, a defensive coach, his first time there. They do have a healthy Trevor Harris, which should make them better. But I like Edmonton in this game. I think unlike the last few years where wins at home have been few and far in between, I think they get off to a nice start. I don't mind laying the 2 points. But as we'll get to in a minute, I think we'll look at money line for this and that last game when we're thinking about a partner parlay. But Dusty's in as well with the Elks at -2. And then we've got this BC Lions game. And the big question about the Argos, Jake, is, the talk is all about the quarterback position. And obviously when your MOP flames out and causes a sort of controversy and problems for his organization, that will be the headline story. My biggest question for Toronto is how their defense holds up. They had a bunch of big-time guys, part of the number one defense last year, leave. A lot of them going to the hammer, actually. And I think there's big question marks with the players and, of course, their defensive coordinator, Corey Mace, leaving. And they do not have an easy start. Now, historically, BC traveling across the country has not been a great place for them. I think having it happen in week one is perfect. They haven't had the wear and tear of the season. They've been preparing for this. I do like BC in this situation. And Dusty's on it as well at -5. So we're going to leave the Bomber Alouette game off of this. And this will be great because we can get it up and it'll be alive right up until tomorrow.
Yes,
but Jake, if you can, let's lock in Ticats money line. Let's lock in the Elks at -127 money line. We won't bother with the 2 points. We'll just go money line on those first two games. I mean, if we did just do money line. Oh, sorry.
374.
That's
374.
Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll probably get it to, with the boost above 4-1 once the guys take care of us. But let's just go Hamilton, Edmonton, and BC, put those together. And if we can get that starting with the 4, I think everyone will be happy. And we won't even need to worry about these spreads in week one. We're just looking at teams to win.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to kick off the season, especially just looking for teams to win. Listen, I admittedly not the biggest CFL knower, I would say. I think Patty talked about it yesterday. I'd love to get more into it this season, especially with how bad the Blue Jays have been. I can dial a little bit more into the CFL. I will say one thing, though. I spent a little bit of time with the the Rough Riders kicker Brett Lowther down in the Zurich and in New Orleans. I think naturally this is how you are as an athlete. He's high on his team this year. He's excited for a big season. So the one thing, I know people in the EST chat probably aren't going to be happy with me, but the one thing is I got my eye on the Rough Riders this year. So we'll see what they can do in week one. Hoping your guys' parlay cashes, but at the same time, I'm not going to be upset if the Rough Riders pick up a little underdog win in week one in Edmonton.
Hey, you know what? ESTers will get a kick out of this. Elks fans, Bomber fans, we all can agree of going against the Riders. I may even do some sort of a parlay that includes missed field goals for Brett Lowther. Just to stoke the fire. Just to stoke the fire.
Do not.
Kid you not. So, you guys check out the Coolbet exclusives as well. All those other exclusives we mentioned are up, but we will have the Lock Shop Partner Parlay for tomorrow. Hamilton, Edmonton, and BC money line all together. Sorry, what was that, Jake?
Sorry, Huss. I know a ton of people have already gotten on this. Edmonton Sports Talk also has their parlay up for the Stanley Cup Final. It's a lot of legs, but it's juicy. Matty Owanek sent it over last night. McDavid 9+ points, Bouchard 6+ points, Hyman 5+ points, Nugent Hopkins 4+ points, Draisaitl 3+ goals, and Edmonton to win the cup in 6 or more games at 12-1 right now. It's under the Sports Talk parlay, so you'll find both the Bombers exclusive for tonight and the Oilers exclusives, which will come offline Saturday night after puck drop. So if you want to get in on those parlays, now's the time, especially the WST one. And more to come, obviously, with the Lock Shop parlay, like we mentioned. Some more stuff in the exclusives, the regular exclusives all weekend. I'm excited, Huss. Like I said, I think this is the best start to a season we've had for CFL. I think we're as dialed in as we've ever been. And, after last season, you never know what can happen. I know you already talked about it a number of times on this show. Like, bottom of the barrel, last place team in the odds for a Grey Cup last year, go on and win it in the Montreal Alouettes, and we'll see what happens this season.
Cannot wait, Jake. Cannot wait. Patty's going to be jumping in tomorrow. We'll go through final picks for the Cup final, as well as the CFL week. Talk a little bit about tonight's game. But again, our Lock Shop Partner parlay should be up a little later on this afternoon with those 3 money line winners. And that, of course, starts tomorrow. So you'll have until Friday's kickoff to get in on that. That'll be over in the Coolbet exclusives. And no line movement, by the way, in the Cup final series price, at least from yesterday. Still minus 143 for the Panthers and plus 119 for the Edmonton Oilers. Big show on Winnipeg Sports Talk coming up. Much more on tonight's game. If you want to join me over on the WST channel in about 5 minutes or so. Jake, great stuff. Have an awesome weekend. Thanks for everything this week. We'll look forward to the Lock Shop Partner Parlay getting up a little later on this afternoon. And I'll look forward to having Pat Gregoire with me in the Lock Shop tomorrow before Dusty returns next week. Have a great one, Jake, and we'll turn it over back to the fellas at ESTHQ.
Thank you, gents, and enjoy the Bombers home opener tonight. Huss out there. Matt Owanek with you here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tune in iHeartRadio as well as on those watching on YouTube. Before I get to our qualifier for the $100,000 hole-in-one, I do want to mention the EST parlay that we do have up at Coolbet for this series of the Stanley Cup Final for the Edmonton Oilers. McDavid plus 9 points, Bouchard 6+ points, Hyman 5+ points, Nuge 4+ points, Draisaitl 3+ goals, and the Oilers to win the Cup in 6 or 7 games. That's plus 1,200 right now, exclusively at Coolbet. Head to coolbet.com, click on exclusives, go down. They got the Winnipeg Sports Talk parlays up, I see right now as well. Wow, that game for tonight, plus 1,375. Wow, that's a nice number. That's better than my plus 1,200 for the Oilers series. So a couple big parlays, a WST and an EST parlay right now up at Coolbet. Congratulations to Dudley. He is our qualifier for the $100,000 hole-in-one presented by Golf Town, which will take place July 3rd, Ranch Golf and Country Club, 17th hole, 180 yards away. Dudley, keep your phone on tomorrow as we'll announce one of the 4 qualifiers today. We'll draw one of those names. They will be called tomorrow morning, and they will be what would be the 9th contestant for the $100,000 hole-in-one presented by Golf Town. They've got TaylorMade deals on now until June 9th, including 25% off TaylorMade bags, Sim2 driver for $330. Full details, golftown.com or go in store. Some exclusions apply this Father's Day. Give the gift of golf, whether it be a gift card or something from Golf Town. Head on there and get your dad or yourself something nice. But yeah, we'll have 25 contestants with the possible chance to swing for $100,000 on July 3rd. I think I keep saying that. In my mind, I keep thinking I say 9th. I don't know if I'm saying the 3rd or the 9th. 9th is the EST Classic at the Ranch. The 3rd's the $100,000 hole-in-one. They're so close together that I just keep mixing the dates up. Okay, let's qualify someone as well for the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival, which will take place July 12th through the 14th, Kingsman Park. Alley Cat, the official beer of the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival. You can enjoy a 6 o'clock lager, have some laughs with some of the best comedians around. There is also an event taking place in Winnipeg later in July. If you're in Winnipeg, greatoutdoorscomedyfestival.com for more information. Nate Bargatze's part of that. Bill Burr's part of that one. Here in Edmonton's Friday, which is sold out, it's Andrew Schultz and Shane Gillis. Saturday, Kevin Hart. That's what we're qualifying for with the VIP table. And Sunday, Burt Kreischer and Whitney Cummings. Tickets for Edmonton, Winnipeg, and there's a bunch of other shows. So if you're in Calgary, there's a show in Calgary. If you happen to be in the state of Washington, there's an event in Spokane. GreatOutdoorsComedyFestival.com for ticket info. It is the Lock Shop. Tonight's the NBA Finals start. I did it earlier, Elks, Riders, who wins? I'm going to go that similar route here when it comes to the qualifying opportunity. Text us 780-218-9999. Who wins the Larry O'Brien Trophy this year? Is it going to be the Boston Celtics or is it going to be the Dallas Mavericks? Text that to 780-218-9999. You'll go into a draw, and Zach DeCum will draw one of you, who will then be in the draw next Friday, as we'll announce the winner on the morning show. That'll wrap up the Lock Shop for today. Coming up next here on EST, it's 2 guys and a goalie, the final one before the start of the Stanley Cup Finals on Saturday. Myself, Joaquin Gage in studio, Matt Cassian from his home studio or office studio. We'll get you set for Stanley Cup Finals right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. That's coming up in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.